You could get the ejecto cuz if you don't bolt it in, do it anyway. Do it anyway.
Don't do it, but do it. Holy shit.
Did we hit? Did we hit?
We got a match on number 3. What's up, crew? Welcome to another episode of Prjct.POD, where we talk about cars because they're dope. That was dorky as hell. I'm pretty excited about this one. We had a little bit of fun with it. And what we ended up doing is we thought of our top 5 modifications universally, no matter what car you're trying to get or your end goal, whether it be drift, circuit, or just to have a really cool car on the streets. These are the 5 modifications we personally thought were our top 5. And we didn't share them with each other, so we kind of surprised each other on what we thought a top 5 was. There's kind of some similarities, and there's kind of a gap on some of them on what we thought were sort of like universal upgrades. But that's all I'm going to say for now. Enjoy the episode. It was absolutely one of my favorites so far. Got this week's Powerball and Mega, and so far we did not get the Mega. We don't have any of the numbers. Wait, I was looking at the wrong one. Nope, no Powerball. What about the Mega? Come on, Mega. Nope. We're not millionaires. We still have to work for our money.
Every week, dude. Every week.
And I can already tell you that there's no millions and millions on these other tickets, so I'm not even going to check them. All right, so we're going to kick this off with a little bit of a brainstorm, and I had mentioned it in a previous build video where we have this rating system. And the reason why I want to kick this episode off with the rating system is we already kind of know what it is, and we're just going to vocalize it a little bit more and make sure that we are aligned on it. And then it will lead us into what our top 5 upgrades are universally. Doesn't matter what car you've picked up. These are the upgrades that you can grab to kind of kickstart your project car. I'm pretty sure it starts with PG, but we were just discussing before we started this recording that it might need to start with G because that's the lowest rating for movies.
It is.
So do we actually need to start with G?
I think we should start with G. So a lot of the really easy bolt-on, I would have put that seat video as a G, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you could get the ejecto cuz if you don't bolt it in, right?
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's 4 bolts. You put it in, you're good to go, right?
Yeah.
Just make sure you get the torque specs right, I guess.
Or I use an impact. I use the old Dugga.
Or just torque it down until it can't.
Yeah.
Just hope you don't break a bolt, right? That should lock it in. So those types of modifications where it's really, really, really easy to, you don't really need a lot of supervision. You don't really need a lot of work experience. If you know how to use a wrench or, tighten or take something off, I would put that in the G category for sure.
Yeah.
And then moving into the PG, I think that would be the Prjct.Garage, not necessarily what our experience is at or limited to, but one Prjct.Garage member can do this by himself.
Yeah.
Right? And that's kind of the approved Prjct.Garage.
Yeah. And then maybe there's the supervision needed could even be as much as needing YouTube more often, needing to research a little bit more often. A G-rated install should almost need no research. So that's why I would even almost say the seat one is sort of PG to that effect. I should have done a little bit more YouTube research. I should have done a little bit more of my own back end looking up the right way to do it, because I ended up having to redo it, I think 3 times technically, and I still don't think it's 100% correct. But that's where PG sits.
All right, we're doing special guest Zeke again.
Special guest Zeke. Yeah. So I think the seat could go either way. To be honest, it could be G or PG because of the fact that you might need to do a little bit more. Honestly, it depends on how you're doing it. I guess we could start incorporating G, which I didn't think about much until today. And then PG is the next step. And then you got PG-13 where it just gets the next layer of hard. And I would say that might be needing your friend to come over, someone who might know a little bit more than you. We were talking about before this episode, this app called Tinker, which it connects you with an expert that will hopefully get you through a certain project that you got stuck on. For me, it's wiring. If I can find a specialist that understands wiring way more than me, I could probably get what I need to be done with that person on.
Yeah.
And then that last one is rated R. Actually, there's
NR17.
Yeah, and NC. Yeah.
I think so. I don't remember. I think NR17 is, even if you have adult, you have to be 17 or older. So I think that one comes after rated R.
Yeah, it does. So I guess technically R is there's too many cuss words. There might be some nudity or extra nudity. And then NC-17 is like extreme gore.
Yeah.
And lots of sex, probably.
Yeah. Like shit you shouldn't see under the age of 17.
Yeah.
Which I still think you shouldn't see at 17, like somebody's body getting ripped apart.
Yeah. So I guess with that said, then PG-13 is probably something like getting under the car where you have to take a drive shaft off. Like that's not difficult, but it's probably something you should take a little extra care on. And then when you jump to rated R, it's something that you almost want to take it to a shop, but you could probably handle it yourself. And you're definitely going to want to at least have a friend who knows a little bit about what they're doing.
Yeah.
And then you get to NC-17 and it's like, take that shit to a shop.
I think we should not have NC-17. It should just go R to X.
Yeah, X. Yeah,
like
that's what I was thinking.
X.
Yeah.
And rated X is the it up rating.
Don't.
Yeah, but
if you do
it anyway. Like, do it anyway.
Don't like do it, but do it.
Rated X should be like changing out like internals on an engine.
Yeah, yeah, right? Doing like, a full rebuild.
Swap the pistons, piston rods. Like, I'm going to redo the bearings. Like, I have to know all the tolerances and like the torque specs where like you're going in deep, and the chances of messing that up is very high.
And I guess that's why it's good that I'd like to couple this with the DIY, DIT, or don't, because in a way, you, like we said, rated X, don't do it, but do it, but don't, but do it. Basically, the do it part is if you've got the stuff in your garage, it's still rated X, but you might have the capability, like big time. I would say those two aren't necessarily, they're not career mechanics.
No.
But they rebuilt RB, I think it was, for his S14. And he did everything that you're supposed to do. So like he clearly has some of the tools, some of the know-how, and it worked.
I don't even think you necessarily need the tools for X. I think it's the balls.
Yeah.
Just like
confidence.
If you got the balls to just go for it, do it. Right.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of like my mentality. And that's how I've kind of built cars is I've gone into building some of the stuff without really knowing how to do it. I'll do my research or whatever, but I've never physically done it on something else. And then I kind of just send it and hope for the best. And I know we talked about this on the first podcast of me like getting better with wrenching and not just throwing wrenches at something and then be like, okay. But at the end of the day, like if you've never done it before, you're still hoping for the best, right? No matter how much research you've done.
Yeah. No, that's where I get stuck is I don't do the research. And I think if there's ever going to be the biggest lesson learned, actually, no, I said it in the seat video, my shirts, do your research before you start to wrench, no matter how experienced you are. I mean, even the big, like best mechanics jump onto a computer before they dive straight in just to make sure they remember what they remember.
Yeah. You have the technology now, right? It's there. It's not like back in the day where you had to get like a Bentley's manual.
Yeah.
And like, look, oh, this is not the right one for this type of car. Like, I guess this kind of works. No, the internet's there. You can get everything, at your fingertips. So yeah, just jump on real quick, figure out what it is that you actually need to do, line up with, oh yeah, that's what I was going to do, or that's what I thought I needed to do.
Yeah.
And either confirm or change if you're like, I didn't know I needed that step, right?
Yeah.
It saves a lot of time and a lot of headache and a lot of frustration.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you can even get to a point where you do all the research and you still end up where I am, where it's like, I know I did enough right with the wiring. There's just something I missed, something little, and then I'm going to figure it out. But I think that's a good segue for us. So we've got this rating system, and I think what we're going to list out is likely so it's the top 5 universal upgrades that we believe you could or should consider for your project car. And we decided that this is for any car. You could be picking up a car like a Toyota Corolla, like my first one, or you could be picking up a ready to go GSX Eclipse and have yourself something to work on. So we're going to work down this list. We did this separately. So Justin may have a different list than I do. And I'm pretty sure we're going to have mostly different, but there's probably a couple of overlaps. Whether or not they're in the same number will be interesting to see. But we're going to kick it off with your number 5 first.
So my number 5, and I think I was telling you about this, I tried to make this list as general as possible, whether you have a 20-year-old project car or you just bought a car off the lot. I think these kind of it will suffice for any car that's there. Obviously, it's a little bit more geared towards having an older car, but still very good things to do if you have a new car. So my number 5 is a tunable ECU and or chip.
Wow.
I know, starting off big, right?
Whoa.
And let me explain the reasoning for this one, right? One, every time somebody gets a car, anytime you get a project car, you're going to be working on this car, right? The first thing you want to get out of it is power. That's everybody's thought process. I want more power. Even if it's a high-powered vehicle, like you want more power out the gate. So getting a tunable ECU or chip is going to give you that little bit. I mean, it's negligible. You might not feel it, but my recommendation is to get the tunable ECU, not so much the chip. The chip is nice to have, but tunable ECU is where you want to go.
The chip is probably the cheaper option, right?
The chip is the cheaper option. Get the tunable ECU, because what that's going to do is that's going to set you up for all of your power gains later on. So as you continue to add to the car and, do whatever type of modifications to the car, you can always go and get it tuned and really get everything you are wanting to get out of those mods just by having that in there. So it's kind of more of a supporting mod for all the stuff you're going to do later. It does give you a little power at the very beginning, but the majority of it is to support what you're going to do to this car moving forward.
Yeah. I'm going to unfortunately ding you if we were keeping score. That's probably not universal.
It absolutely is universal.
My S52 doesn't have a plug and play ECU that I can just go pick up.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. The War Drive ECU,
maybe I just haven't done enough research.
Is there. Also the Link.
Speaking of research.
Yeah, you did not get the right ECU for it. You got a Mega Squirt, which, I love Mega Squirt. I like them better than Link, but Link does have an S52 plug and play.
I thought I couldn't find one for S52. Anyways, I digress. I'm going to go ahead and go with my number 5, which is, I'm also intrigued to see what the rest of your list looks like compared to mine, because mine might be just Mine might be just a little bit more universal, and also the type of like brains we have. I think yours, like we've already found out in many of these talks, like you have a little bit more experience under the hood than I do. But anyways, my number 5 is wheels and tires. So we were talking about how, priciness isn't necessarily a part of this. Like you can go super expensive on some of these universal mods, but to me, I say wheels and tires, and I would even say you don't even have to do the wheels. You could just go with tires, because you're going to get so much more out of your car if you buy the right set of tires. So instead of having just your regular run-of-the-mill street tires, you can get something a little bit more performance and not only change the look of the car, but also change the feel of how you're driving, depending on how you like to drive. If you're able to go with the wheels, then you can really, really change the look and feel of the car, because you're going to change the weight distribution. You're going to change where it sits, because you can choose the offset to have it, instead of having that stock tucked look, you'll have it more along the lines of the wheel wells or the fender lines. So that's my number 5. But I do like your angle with the ECU, because there's a lot of conversation about how cars come off the lot, and especially in the US, they're not the same that they were when they were produced. They're throttled down. Even the US cars are throttled down because, we've got a lot of rules over here. So getting yourself an ECU, or even just the chip that gives you that little extra amount. Like you said, you might not feel it, but it feels good to tick that horsepower number up, even if it's by 2, by 5, by 10.
I do like your suggestion too. That was something I did mull over, just to let you know. I don't have wheels and tires on my list, right? I definitely considered putting it on there towards the bottom, because it's such a great modification, not only from an aesthetic standpoint, like you get the car to look a little bit more how you want it to look, right? It's a performance-based modification. So you get, it's a 2-for-1 basically, right? If you get the right tires, like I'm not talking about like those guys that like get a 10.5 or 11-inch wide wheel and then throw like a 8.5 tire on there and stretch it out to
that ruins your drive.
But if you're going for performance, right, you get the right wheel set, right wheelbase, you get a little wider tire, you can get that power to the ground, you get a lot more grip from it. It's a really good modification. So a really good start to that list. I'm kind of excited. If that's the start, I want to know the 4, 3,
I put
2,
some good
1.
thought into mine. All right. So with that said, then good segue. Number 4 for me, because we're going to switch off. My number 4 is a short shifter. And here's quickly why. Because one, especially if you get manual, if you got an automatic, I'm not gonna hate, but you
If
should
you have
really
an
want to get a
automatic, you're
manual.
not supposed to be on
Hey,
this list.
well,
Get the out of here.
don't talk to Justin.
No,
No,
you're not
not on
modifying
this.
the car. Go take your
Hey,
Altima.
man, come back to high school with me. I've
Yeah,
had
no.
many automatics.
And how often did you drive my car versus your car when I got the manual?
Anyways, so first of all, with your new manual project car, go with the short shifter because ain't nobody want to keep their squishy stock shifter. And this is it's not going to increase your performance by a ton. Obviously, it's going to help you shift a little bit quicker, which also depends on your ability to shift that quick.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just going to give you that, race car feel. And in many cases, it's not going to make it a race car either. Like a lot of short shifters still maintain a stock height and look, so you don't really see it underneath all the other stuff, all the paneling.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot. The short shifter definitely is something that I think is a necessity for anything, but very good modification to have when you first get, especially when you first get like you're new to driving manual. Just having that little like tick makes it feel race car. Right?
Yeah. And as a new driver, even like, you're in gear 100%.
Yeah.
Sometimes
you're in gear.
especially if you get an older car, you might not know that you're first or second and it might pop right out. And you're like, I didn't push hard enough.
Yeah. And nobody wants to pop right out, dude. It's terrible.
No.
My number 4 is modified exhaust. Now I want to make this a caveat. I'm not talking about going on eBay, buying a canister, throwing it on, or getting a catback. I'm talking about an actual modified exhaust, right? So going and getting a MagnaFlow, going and getting like a reputable, exhaust shop vendor, whether that's getting resonators with it or whatever, but creating your own catback, right? I know a lot of cars are in that 2 to 2.5 inch diameter range, and they go all the way through. And if you buy like a catback off of whatever website, it's going to continue following that, right? So you're not really going to get a lot of performance gain from it or potential performance gain from it. It's mostly for the sound.
Yeah.
To create your own, what you're doing is you're thinking about what your project car is going to be in the future, right? So you're already putting together, if you have a non-turbo car, you're going turboed, right? Making sure from the cat back it's 3 inch all the way through or 3.5 all the way through, right? Getting the resonation and the sound that you want out of it and the performance out of it by creating your own, having the right bends, having the most direct flow from the cat all the way back so that there's no restriction, right? And kind of starting that process. Again, this is another kind of supporting mod, just like the tunable ECU. But what this is going to do is kind of provide you with the ability to really take advantage of any of the other mods that you plan to do to this car and not have to worry about, am I putting too much back pressure? Is this going to hurt, whatever valves are in my car because I can't flow the exhaust enough, right? A lot of people talk about back pressure and how important it is to getting exhaust out. I haven't seen any reliable information on back pressure on NA cars being, a necessity. So open that bitch up, get the exhaust out, right? Get the sound that you want. And it's kind of like your wheels thing. It gives you that aesthetic look that you're looking for, but also it's a really good supporting mod for everything else you're going to do to your car. So my list is kind of to build into what you want to do, right? Like not just start building, but like really when you get the car, think about what you want to do and what you want to achieve with the car. And these mods will help you get to that point. So you don't have to think about them later.
Yeah. I mean, you can go a lot of different ways with exhaust, and I'll talk about a little bit more later. But it's good because you have a wide range of capability. Like you said, it'll open it up, but also you can go as quiet as you want. You can go as loud as you want. You can do so much with that. And it's not only a performance upgrade, but it also is a style upgrade. You're picking, it's like, if you've ever played a racing game and you do have the ability to change the exhaust, sometimes they have the sound selector. You could be like, I want it to sound dirty. I want it to sound throaty. I want it this way. But no, I 100% agree. So we'll revisit that.
Yeah. I think the only problem with exhaust, especially if you're looking, and I'm having this issue, I should say, you want if you're like me, you want a specific sound and you're trying to achieve that sound. And there's no way to know if that sound is going to come out of your car without buying it and putting it on the car. Yeah. Like, even if you look at sound clips on YouTube and stuff like that, people have such shitty mics that the sound that you hear on YouTube isn't going to be the sound that comes out of your car.
Different. It's just like someone asked for a sound test of the 10-inch sub in the truck. I'm like, what do you think you're going to hear?
That's all you're going to hear. Yeah.
I can show you the rattle of my
Like if you
rear
don't have the
mirror.
same sub in your car, it's not going to rattle the same way. Like
Yeah.
you're going to think it's
Yeah.
shit.
That's funny. All right, so you're number 3.
Number 3, coilovers or springs and struts.
Holy shit!
Did
Ding
we
ding
hit?
ding ding ding
Did we
ding.
hit?
We got a match on number 3. Nice.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So let's hear your reasoning first.
So again, supporting type mod, it gets the feel of the car to be kind of what you want with any type of stock setup with the suspension. They make it super soft because people have to drive these every day. They build them with
car.
They build them with the thought of commuter car. They build them with the thought of comfort. So the spring rates are really soft. The struts are really soft, and that's okay. Like that's not an issue. But if we're going for performance, you're trying to build a car, you need to be able to have that rebound on there and really have that type of response from your suspension so that when you're cornering or, even if you just decide to drop it into gear, you don't want your car, lifting, right? You want all 4 wheels, you want it to be stable.
Yeah.
And so that modification really helps, 1, with that process, and 2, it just feels better.
That's such a big difference. You start driving it around
and you feel the responsiveness. Like I've done a lot of modification on my car and coilovers, even the shitty ones. Like I had rokers one time on my E36 and God, it was terrible. But going from like the suspension that I had before to the rokers was night and day. It was crazy how responsive though that was just from putting that modification on. And then when you get to the more expensive ones, like you can get a pretty budget one like Megan's or something, and it'll be nice.
Yeah.
But when you get to some more, heavy duty, industry specific type coilovers, the response on them is just amazing. And you have so much adjustability on them.
Yeah.
Right?
So that's what I was going to say is it's just like what I said about the exhaust is you can kind of go many different ways. And it's good that you kind of covered what I was going to segue into, which is if you're looking for budget friendly, you can still spend less money and get a new feel. And this goes even more so with most of the cars that we're going to be looking at for project cars are old now.
Yeah.
A lot of the newer cars, you're not going to have as much option to do these things. You could still probably do coilovers, but it's like this whole right to repair movement. The reason for that is because it's harder to modify newer cars. But when you're looking at older cars like an E36 or an E46 now, you have to do coilovers because those things are shot. When I took mine off of the M3, I could compress them and pull them out. Like that rear damper was absolutely toast. So you have to upgrade it. And then you're going to feel the difference even more so because that E36 would bottom out on any bump. And then as soon as I put the coilovers on, oh my God, it was snug to the ground.
Yeah.
So you most likely will need to do it because of age. And then when you do go to do it, you have that option. You can go super cheap, won't have as much adjustment, but you still get the feel. And then you can go middle of the road and have a lot of adjustability where you can tighten up the dampening. You can probably tighten up the spring rate. You can get swift springs instead of what comes with the coilovers. And then obviously if you've got, big dick budget, you can go and buy the race kit
or some
race kit that's so unnecessary for street driving. But hey, you got the money, why not?
Yeah, why not?
So it's awesome that lined up because I think it is one of the coolest upgrades. It's also something that I would say is in that PG-13 realm where you'll definitely want a friend to DIT with you so that you can work on it together, do both corners at the same time. But you're still going to have to do a lot of research to make sure that you have the right tools, the right confidence to get in there and actually take that type of thing apart. Plus, you're probably going to need an alignment. And that's probably the 13 part where it's like, take it to somebody.
Yeah, it's definitely, I would say in between like PG and PG-13 because it can be done by yourself. I've changed out a whole suspension system by myself. It sucks, but it's doable, right? It just makes it a lot more fun and a lot easier if you have a buddy with you. And you got to kind of get to enjoy the look of those a lot more than being frustrated why this thing isn't lining up with whatever bolt you're trying to put on. So definitely, in between, if you want to try to tackle it by yourself, you can do it, but would recommend having a friend just because it makes it a lot easier to get done.
All right, so jumping over to number 2, mine is exhaust. So my number 2 is exhaust, and just like everything that you said and everything I said right after, it is very accessible and can help you with a little bit of power. It'll open it up a little bit, especially in your case, if you're talking about also adding a chip or an ECU. Adding that exhaust will allow that to breathe even more.
Yeah.
The one thing that I would say though is to break it down into the rating system, right? If you want to get an exhaust and maybe you heard it from a friend, or like you said, heard it on YouTube and it sounds good enough, going the catback route that's already pre-made, there's so many options now that it allows you to get into a project really easily, really quickly. So like if you have lower confidence, you can go with that. If you have even lower confidence, that's even more reason to take it to a shop and just have them do a custom one.
Yeah.
But I would say it's like the whole back in the day type of thing. I feel like more and more now it's easy to get a complete system that sounds great. And it is even still already a 3-inch pipe. Like it's not even like you could get that size.
Yeah, and I wasn't trying to shit on the catbacks earlier. Again, figure out what you want to do with the car, right? What is your project? If you have an NA car and you're going to go turbo, you have to go 3-inch at least. Might as well get it in now instead of buying an exhaust, waiting till you put the turbo in and then having to replace it later. You're saving money, you're saving time, right? So figure out what you want to do with the car. If you don't want a turbo, or you're not increasing your turbo or making it bigger or whatever, and the piping is going to stay the same with your goals, go buy a pre-built, catback exhaust system to get the kind of sound you want. See what that sound looks like. If you don't like it, get some resonators, cut it up, take it to a shop, cut it up, have them weld in the resonators, see what that sounds like, right? But it definitely, that's one of those modifications that you really have to think about what you're going to do in the future and what your project goal is. And if you can get that knocked out pretty early and then have the supporting mods kind of go into it as you move along, it's going to give you the type of performance, and you're not going to have to worry about it, right? It's going to give you the type of performance of every other supporting mod that you put on after that. And you're going to see those numbers that you always see on the boxes, like adds 15 horsepower, right? You're going to see closer to those numbers because you've really
opened it up.
Right?
It's also probably a budget question too. I'd say you probably get at a lower cost a pre-made kit.
Absolutely.
Versus going for a custom, because if you go for a custom, the cheaper one's going to be the one you don't want, because it'll be the one that rusts in less than a year or sounds all tinny because they did it wrong.
Yeah.
So budget wise, like you said, reputable shop, that's going to cost you some good money.
It's going to cost you some money, but that's the thing. Also, getting reputable parts, right? Like that raspy,
not just an eBay tin can like I got on my Lancer LS.
All they do is just stuff a bunch of bullshit into that thing, and it eventually burns up. It burns up in like 6 months, and then you're just getting like that sound. It sucks, right? So getting the right type of muffler, even if the shop doesn't do the piping completely correct, as long as it's sealed, it's going to sound good, right? Yep. You might have some performance issues with the sealing if there's obstructions within the piping that the weld got through or whatever, but those are minimal at best. I
think he's trying to get us to go on to number 2 for you. What's your number 2?
Okay, number 2. My number 2 is poly bushings. Yes, not very easy to do, right? You need to get a press and everything, but again, to the feel of the car, to building out the project and doing what you want. If you're gonna, again, I'm kind of taking this from a NA to turbo car. When you add power to cars, you need to get that power to the ground.
Yeah.
It's not I'm going to throw in an extra 300 horsepower. What I have now is going to get it to the ground. That's not how that works, right? So these are all supporting mods to when you do start throwing power into this car, it's going to be able to take that power and you're going to be able to really enjoy the car instead of slamming it into a wall and be like, I just wasted, $10,000 on nothing, right? So poly bushings, I would recommend, and that's a very broad term, I would recommend, like the F cabs, the R cabs, any type of lollipops. I wouldn't recommend going engine or transmission unless you have a really old car and you need to replace them.
Just be ready. Ones.
Just be ready for your car to shake. Yeah. Right? If you do get poly bushings, and don't think it's a misfire, it's the normal shake that your engine has. It's just the rubber bushings. We're kind of eating that when, oh no, we lost the binky.
No.
What's your number 2?
No, that was exhaust was my number 2. So now we're
that's right.
Yeah, we're on the number one.
We're on number
So
one.
I don't know that we could do it at the same time because I think Riverside will cancel both of our voices. So I'm going to say mine and then quickly you say yours. Ready? My number one is intake.
Short shifter.
Oh, so we do have one that's
I didn't want to say anything when you said short shifter because it's my number one. It was just like a different one, but it's my number one.
This is the first thing you're going to. All right. So it's interesting though, because it is both of our options are very, very install friendly, right? They're not something that's going to make you want to throw your car down the driveway. So I would say that's a great number one. Both of these sort of match that like Prjct.Garage-esque idea of picking a modification that's not going to make you hate project cars. And then just like everything else we talked about, intake is going to give you a little bit of more power, baby. It's going to give you, baby. Yeah. And then with the, combined with your ECU chip idea, it's going to even more power when you can tune it. But let's hear your reasoning around the short shifter.
So the short shifter, the reason why this is the number one for me with any car that you get, regardless of what it is, get a short shifter first. Is one, if you're brand new to cars, it's very easy to install. It's not a difficult mod to get into your car. It's hard to mess up. So it gets you some experience with, modifying your car. You get something done quickly that makes you feel accomplished for the car. It's kind of a cool feeling like, oh yeah, like I was saying before, like you get that race car feeling. The second part is, even though it doesn't add any power, it doesn't add any, real functionality, getting power to the ground. Like you were saying, it gets you into gear. You're in gear. You're not shifting across state lines. Like my dad's E46, like Jesus Christ. I feel like I'm going across the border when I'm shifting that thing. It's crazy.
It's like shifting the super tall, like old school, like skull on the top, dude. Here. It's like, or a big rig shifter.
Like I feel like I'm going to put my fist through the windshield because I'm shifting so far.
Yeah.
So just that kind of cleaning that up feels really, really good driving your car. It will make sure that you don't burn out your clutch prematurely, right? So people trying to get into gear or throwing into gear, and we were talking about that pop out, that is messing your clutch up, right? Your clutch is trying to engage this gear and it's not engaging it, and you haven't engaged it fully. And so your clutch is kind of eating that all the time, as well as the transmission, but mostly that clutch. So kind of keeping it clean and making sure that you're getting into gear and it's getting into gear cleanly is really going to help with the transmission and really help keep your clutch from burning out, so that when you do end up putting more power into the car, it's not just, I just added 100 horsepower, 150 horsepower, and I didn't realize that my clutch was burnt out because I haven't been shifting correctly, or it's been popping out or whatever. So I think it's the best mod to do at the very beginning, especially if you don't have a lot of experience with working on cars, because it gets you that accomplishment feeling. You feel it every time you drive the car. It's not something that it's out of sight, out of mind. You're touching that every time, so you're kind of reminded every time, like, I did this. This feels good. This feels race car.
Yeah. I mean, similarly, and even with the exhaust. So another reason why I had intake on there is for the performance side, obviously, it'll give you that little tiny boost. But then depending on the car, and actually I would say even most cars, my truck even, I put a short ram on that thing. Mm-hmm. I can hear the damn thing sucking air. And that's awesome. When it comes to a turbo car, Evos, as soon as you open up that air box, you hear that. It's like, man, this is why I like my turbo, other than the fact that the boost puts me into the seat. So for the sounds you get out of the intake is also a reason for me to have it as number one. And I'm sure it's even better. Like my truck's a V8, but it's not like the most exciting V8.
Yeah.
On like an LS, I bet putting a fresh intake on that thing.
I would say if you are going intake route and you don't have a turbo car, let's say you have an NA car, make sure you get a cold air. Right? Yeah. You don't want to get a short ram on any of those vehicles because you're just
sucking hot air,
pulling engine heat into that.
Well, my truck has its own little box protecting that intake filter. Hopefully it's a little less hot over there, and it's right next to the fender, so it's collecting cold air. You got
to get cold air into that, but if you have a turbo car, short ram it or just put a cone. Who cares? Because you have an intercooler, or you should have an intercooler. If you don't,
We have
that's
questions.
number one on your list. Having cold air going into the engine, very important. So if you are considering doing the intake first, research, make sure you understand what type of intake you need to get, what's going to be the best performance for your car, because it's not just the sound. You are getting performance, and you don't want to be stuck in hot air.
Yeah. And I mean, at the end of the day, do what you want. Like I did with my Toyota Corolla. Apparently we stuck an engine intake in that thing, and I don't remember it, but I guess it was in there. And if you like it, it's all good. You might get a lot of shit from people. You might not want to open the hood when you're at Cars and Coffee. But if you want a wrench on your car, these are definitely the things that you can do to make that happen. And that's the most important part, is like really getting into the idea of touching the car that you bought for that reason.
Yeah.
And these, both of our lists are definitely good representations of like the easiest way, the lowest barrier to entry to get into it. Even like the coilovers, that might, like I said it in a long time ago in a video, coilovers probably sound like the scariest thing to people who just got into it. And my hope is that we provide a view into the fact that it's not. Like that's, I will be doing BCs on the Evo at some point once I have the budget for that, because it has some crappy, I don't even know what brand coilovers on it, and I want to refresh. So we'll be able to show it's simple, right? I have little experience and I can do it.
Yeah. It's not, all of these are very, with the exception of the exhaust, maybe if you're not getting a cat back and you're getting it done professionally, but still somebody else is doing that for you. But these are all low barrier, right? Like you can get in if you have very little experience, a couple YouTube videos, and you can get it done, right?
Yeah.
The tuning aspect of these, again, like with my list, right? It gives you a lot of flexibility. So you can mess it up pretty hard if you decide to kind of go off on the deep end. Like with the coilovers, if you're like, oh, I just want it cambered, and you just throw it max, you're going to mess something up, right?
Yeah.
So be wary of what you're doing as far as tuning those specs. But if you just buy and throw on, more often than not, you'll be fine and you're going to get some performance out of it, right? So that's something definitely keep an eye on, and just f*** it, man. F*** it up.
F*** it up. Spend some money on that money pit.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. If you're new, consider joining the crew. By subscribing to the channel, two things are going to happen. One, you're going to get weekly content from this podcast that we're recording where we talk about cars. And two, you're going to enter to win one of our first giveaways. And that is for a new set of Icon wrenches from Harbor Freight and a Daytona jack with jack stands. All we have to do is get to 1,000 subscribers. That is the goal. Once we get to 1,000, we'll pick a winner and we'll either send the gifts to you, or if you want to choose cash, I believe we're looking at about a $300 cash value. This is the first of hopefully many giveaways where we're trying to build up project garages around the US to start, and then hopefully across the world, where we're starting small with some tools. We'll build up towards outfitting an entire garage for a winner in the future. And then of course we'll mix in some car giveaways, because that's just kind of a natural progression, but we have a fun twist that we're trying to develop ourselves here. Anyways, if you're not new, you know exactly what to do. Hit the like button, leave a comment, share this video. Those are the ways that help grow the crew. And until the next one, I'll see you later, crew. But also, go spend some money on your money pit.
Back and I'm better than ever.
And I already said that in the video, so it's all good.
I think I got a vendetta.
But seriously, thanks for watching. If you made it this far, you're awesome.
Oh, now they call me, I seen them. All of those times getting severed. I told them